Welcome to my HQ. Very often, it's not our presence that disturbs animals, it's the way we move. A step that's too fast, a branch that shifts, a rhythm that doesn't fit the place. And without even seeing us, animals already know that something isn't right. In this video, we're going to see how to move through the forest without being detected, by understanding how animals perceive movement, sound, and intention, to observe without disturbing. Let's begin. Hi, I'm your wildlife guide. In this video, we're going to take the time to understand why animals almost always detect us before we ever see them. Even when we are still, even when we are silent, even when we feel we're doing nothing in particular. We're not going to talk here about noise, nor about movement, nor about techniques to get closer. We're going to talk about animal perception, about the way animals read their environment, and above all, about the deep difference between the way we look at nature and the way the living world perceives us. What you're about to hear in this video is not a list of tricks. It's a logic, a way of understanding what happens before any action even begins. The goal is never to force an encounter, nor to go further, nor to become invisible. The goal is to disturb less, to better understand the world we are stepping into, and to accept that seeing less is often part of a more accurate, more respectful way of observing. When we enter a natural environment, we very often feel as if we're stepping into an open, empty space. A calm place, available, almost unoccupied. The absence of visible animals gives us the impression that the place is empty, or at least temporarily unused. But for wildlife, this way of reading a place doesn't exist. A natural environment is never perceived as empty. It is perceived as stable. And that difference is fundamental. Animals don't discover their environment from scratch each time. They live in places they already know, at least in their broad outlines. They know which shapes are present, which masses are fixed, which silhouettes belong to the usual background. A tree is not just a tree. It is a stable visual reference. A rock is not just a rock. It is a constant mass in the landscape. When a new element appears where no comparable form was expected, the balance of the place is altered. Even if that element doesn't move, even if it makes no sound. This isn't conscious analysis. It's an automatic mechanism. Something was absent, now it is there, and in the wild world, an unexplained change is always treated as important information. Wild animals don't discover their environment the way we do. They don't rediscover it with every outing, or every movement. They already know it, not as a precise map, but as a general logic. A memorized structure that allows them to orient quickly and react without hesitation. They know where the terrain is open, where it is closed, where a silhouette is usual, and where it is not. This memory of the landscape is essential for survival. In the wild, those who hesitate too long take risks. That's why the animal brain works through comparison. It doesn't try to analyze in detail. It tries to verify whether what it perceives matches what is already known. When a new element appears, the question is not, what is it? The question is, does this belong to what usually exists here? If the answer is no, vigilance settles in immediately. Not out of panic, not out of excessive fear, but because in an unstable world, any new element deserves to be evaluated. One fundamental point is often misunderstood by human observers. We tend to believe that an animal first tries to identify what it perceives. In reality, that's not the case. An animal does not try to know whether you are a human, a walker, or a photographer. The first step is never identification. It is detection. The central question is not, what is it? The question is always, does this belong here? In nature, what is abnormal takes priority. Because the abnormal can be dangerous. An unfamiliar element doesn't need to be threatening to be taken seriously. You can be still. You can be silent. If you don't match the memorized pattern of the place, you are detected. Not yet seen, not yet understood, but already integrated as information that needs to be monitored. And this early detection explains why animals are often seen to be one step ahead. The human silhouette poses a very particular problem in a natural environment. It's not a question of noise. It's not a question of movement. It's a question of shape. In nature, dominant shapes are rarely perfectly vertical. They are slanted, broken, irregular. Trees are never perfectly straight. Rocks are never symmetrical. The human silhouette, however, combines several unusual features. It is vertical, relatively symmetrical, and often stable for several seconds. For an animal accustomed to reading the landscape as a coherent whole, this kind of shape stands out immediately. Even without strong contrast, even without movement, This is not a visual detail. It's a global reading of the structure of the place. You can be perfectly still. You can be discreet. Your shape remains new information within a landscape that was already known. We humans tend to search with our eyes. We scan. We focus our gaze. We wait for a clear movement. But for many animals, detection works differently. It doesn't rely first on central vision, but on peripheral vision. What matters is not detail. It's change. A break in continuity. A mass appearing where there was none. A shape that alters the balance of the visual field. An animal can therefore perceive you without ever looking at you directly. It doesn't need to fix its gaze. It doesn't need to precisely identify your shape. That's why, very often, you feel like you arrived too late. The animal didn't appear and then leave. It was detected before it ever became visible. And you keep searching where your human gaze tells you to look. Remaining still is often seen as a solution. But in animal perception, human stillness is not neutral. A motionless body still gives information. Its orientation, its general axis, the direction it is facing. In nature, a clear orientation is rarely meaningless. It suggests a possible action, even if that action never happens. For an animal, a body oriented towards it can be interpreted as focus. You don't move, you make no visible gesture, but your body already indicates a possible direction. That's why some animals seem to react even before you realize you are looking. They are not reading your movement. They are reading your potential intention. When an observer says, "The animal fled," that's not always accurate. In many situations, the animal doesn't flee. It anticipates. It detects an anomaly. It evaluates it, and it adjusts its position. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a rush. It simply moves out of your perceptual field. This repositioning is discreet, often invisible, but extremely effective. That's why some places seem empty, even though they're active. Animals don't disappear, they avoid appearing. This behavior is very common among discrete species. And as long as we don't understand this mechanism of non-appearance, we feel like we are always one step behind. Animals don't perceive you too early. They perceive you in a world where every anomaly can have consequences. This is not excessive caution. It is survival logic. A new element that doesn't yet make sense is always treated with attention. When you integrate this reality, your way of observing changes. You force less. You expect fewer immediate results. You accept that not seeing is part of observation. And paradoxically, it is often at that moment that encounters become calmer. Not closer, but more accurate. If this video helped you better understand what's really happening out in the field, then leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Every week, we explore a new aspect of the living world, always with an ethical, field-based approach. And tell me in the comments, what surprised you the most, or changed the way you see things. See you very soon, out in nature.